Hi, welcome to the second day of the 14-day challenge of the Portals program, my alternative healing course. And the second letter of the word portal is an O. And the O stands for open your mind and heart to the potential of seeing the child in a new and masterful way. And one of the masterful ways that you can see children is to work with their birth. And I'm going to talk about the stress patterns that children and adults get from birth. They have stress patterns and they have survival patterns. So what do I mean by stress patterns? Well, for example, maybe there's somebody who procrastinates. They put things off for a long time, maybe a project or cleaning the house or an assignment. And then at the very end, when it's due or it's a last minute, there's a big push and they're busy, busy, busy. Now there might be some anxiety with that, or it may feel like exhilaration, like, wow, I did it at the end. But whatever it is, it's become a stress pattern. So we find that in birth. For example, that pattern might come out as the mom is in labor for a really long time, and the baby might be stuck in one position. And so there's not a lot of movement going on. And then maybe the mom's given an epidural at the end and quickly she dilates and the baby's out. So that becomes the pattern. It goes for a long time and then it comes to the birth and the baby's breathing on their own. Or there might be another stress pattern. And that could be a person's really good at starting things. They can start projects, they can have a lot of projects going at the same time, but then they can't finish them. And it seems like they always need to get help at the end. I need somebody else to help me with this, can't do it alone. Or they're kind of dependent on other people. And that can come from a birth like a C-section or what we call a cesarean. For example, it's a possibility. Let's say the baby is starting to be born and she's going feet first. And the doctor says, I can't seem to move her, so we're going to do an emergency C-section. So then the mother's given anesthetic and then the baby is taken out by the doctor. So in other words, the baby started down the canal and everything was going fine, but then somebody else had to take over. So that would be an example of that kind of stress pattern. And then we have more of what I call a survival pattern. And this is where there could be real critical things that happen in birth that do become traumatic. For instance, an example of a behavior of somebody who has maybe had a severe survival trauma in their birth would be maybe separation anxiety. In other words, they can't leave their home. The child can't leave the parent. They can't go to school. Maybe there's anger within the teenager and the adult, and they're always at loggerheads, and there's all this anger because the bonding has been disturbed, what I call. Maybe separation anxiety. In other words, they can't leave their home. The child can't leave the parent. They can't go to school. Maybe there's anger within the teenager and the adult, and they're always at loggerheads, and there's all this anger because the bonding has been disturbed, what I call. And that comes from situations in birth that are critical, where maybe the baby had to be put in the incubator because there were complications or there was an illness. And so the baby's in an incubator. And though things are better in hospitals now and parents are much more involved, they get to stay around the baby, there's still this sense that they're not being held as much, they're not being connected to the mom's heart, and so they're a little bit alone and they feel this separation by this incubator. Or it could be a situation where there's been a real severe illness and then the baby is afraid that they're going to die. Now this is not a thought particularly, but it's a sense. We know that babies feel, and so their feelings come out and they don't know what to do about this. This is subconscious material. So when we work with children and when I work with adults, we go back into these situations to heal them. So for an example, with a child, I might set up a sand tray scene and the parents have told me about the birth, and so I kind of replicate it in the scene, and I ask the child through my storytelling technique to just help me with it. Can you help me with my scene? And they usually say yes. And I say, well, just answer some questions. And I'm asking questions of the subconscious mind or from their body, where we keep all of our memories in our body, in our cells. So then we get to whatever that experience was to heal it. And oftentimes when I work with children or adults, we do a rebirthing at the end, because what every baby really wants is a head first birth. And even science has talked about how this really helps to develop the baby when they are pushing and pushing. And it helps in their own survival patterns and in their stress patterns in life. So what I would like you to do is, I have a questionnaire attached to this post, and I would like you to take a look at it and answer a couple of questions. One of the questions is, do you know about your birth? Do you know what happened? If not, could you ask somebody in the family? And then, second of all, what are your stress patterns? What do you find yourself repeating over and over? And see if there's any kind of connection. I'd love to hear your comments and respond, and I would love to answer your questions. And thank you for participating in the second day of the challenge.